Okay, so welcome to Module 4 in this third section of Botany 111 that we've moved entirely online. This would have been the lecture for April 6th of this year, but you can probably get to it on your own time. There's a little bit more reading that's useful to this lecture today, but as usual, the ecology content is sort of sprinkled throughout the book. So I've got about 10 pages I want you to read in Chapter 6. 10 pages in Chapter 7, and then I want you to actually read these two text boxes from Chapter 8. I think a lot of times the students don't read the text boxes. They're kind of non sequiturs that are in the middle of the lectures, but I actually think these two boxes on their own are interesting things to think about in the context of today's lecture. So what I want to talk about is the environment and plant adaptations. Now, Mike had a very similarly titled lecture in his physiology section that was all about how plant physiological responses can change as a response to the environment. But the goal today here is, last week we talked about populations, but we're going to backtrack back down to the level of the organisms, and we're going to think about sort of the ecological consequences of individual level things that plants do, right? So you've seen this slide already. Ecology is about interactions at the individual level. So let's think a bit about what individuals are capable of. Remember, and I showed you that the reason why ecology is about interactions among individuals when we change the definition is because every interaction is always between individuals, right? So it's this plant here. This is one individual plant and one individual bee. These are two individual plants that are shading. One is shading the other, and this is an individual beetle eating an individual plant. So what Mike probably showed you when he was talking about plants in the environment was, at least in part, something like this. So here is a plant's photosynthetic response. So we've got CO2 assimilation on the y-axis, and we've got the environmental concentration of CO2 in the environment in pascals. And so I think that the world is somewhere around here at 40 pascals. And so you can often use machines to kind of double, right? So this is where we're headed by the year 2100 if nobody does anything about climate change. And you can see here there's a difference between a C4 plant and a C3 plant. These are two types of photosynthesis that you would have learned in Mike's part of the course. And what I want to think about here is how we might use some of this information to understand individual level plant responses. And another thing that this graph doesn't show you is the CO2 compensation point, right? So this is the CO2 concentration, right? So let's look at this one. It's around 10 pascals. This is the CO2 concentration that's required for a leaf to break even, right? Because plant leaves have both benefits and costs, right? And the compensation point is where the benefits and the costs are equal. So what I want you to do right now, this is going to be a really quick video, is I want you to think about these questions and answer the survey on Blackboard, and then we'll pick this up on the other side. So given this picture, what is the maximum benefit of the leaf? And let's say that it's going to be, either plant, the average plant shown on this graph. What is the maximum benefit of a leaf? What units is this in? How could a plant potentially increase the benefits that they get? And what is the cost of a leaf? Now, what is the maximum benefits and what is the cost? These are numbers that you should be able to pull off of this graph. And the units you can pull off the graph, and the numbers and the units should tell you something about how a plant might be able to increase its benefit. So go take the survey and we'll pick this up on the other side.